Hi everyone, here is an answer key for the Trig Lesson 1 homework on the Pythagorean theorem. So we'll start in here on number 1. For each of the following, find the indicated hypotenuse or leg. Okay, and yes, so for this we are using the Pythagorean theorem, and it's important to find the hypotenuse because that is labeled C in the formula, and the hypotenuse is always across from the 90 degrees. So this side is C, and that one is important to find because the C is by itself in the Pythagorean theorem. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. Okay, so once you establish where C is, it doesn't matter how you label A and B because they are on the same side of the equation. So we could do it like this, and in this case we are looking for C. It is x squared equals 35 squared plus 12 squared. So x squared is equal to 35 squared plus 12 squared, and we get 1369. And of course, to get x by itself, when you have x squared, you have to square root. And we square root both sides, and technically the plus or minus answer could work. So x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1369, which is 37. And then we look at the context of the problem and say, hey, I just found the length of a side of a triangle, so it wouldn't make sense to call that negative 37 meters. So we would say just 37 meters and reject the negative answer. Okay, so there's 1A, and I'm noticing in the answer key it is indeed 37. All right, in B, let's establish where C is. It's right here. Okay, so this time we are trying to find one of the legs. So I can go A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A is x. X squared plus 16 squared equals 65 squared. And we need to get x by itself. It's being squared, and then we're adding 16 squared. So you can subtract the 16 squared over. And we end up with x squared equals, that's going to be 65 squared minus 16 squared. And we get 3969. And I'm actually just going to give a little bit more space there. Okay, we now have to go square root, plus or minus. X equals, I'm going to do the square root of that answer, and we get 63. So mathematically it starts off as 63, but then we would go, hey, reject the negative, finding the length of a side. 63, in this case, meters. Okay, and again, consistent with the answer key. All right, in letter C, across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, which gets labeled C. Okay, so we can call this A and this B. So this time I'm going to go C squared equals A squared plus B squared, because we usually like the unknown letter on the left side. And so I'm going to plug x in for C. X squared is equal to 24 squared plus 27.5 squared. So x squared is equal to 24 squared plus 27.5 squared, and we get 1332.25. And let's go square root with a plus or minus in front. So x is equal to the square root of that. We're going to go to 1 decimal place, which is all there are anyway. So 36.5. I guess technically, first of all, plus or minus 36.5 millimeters. And then we would say 36.5 millimeters. And I'm actually going to erase the millimeters up here. Okay, and that is consistent with the answer key. All right, letter D across from the 90 is C, so we can label this A and this B. And this time I'm going to go A squared plus B squared equals C squared so that I have the unknown letter on the left. 20 squared plus X squared is equal to 25 squared. And then to get X squared by itself, we subtract the 20 squared. Positive X squared we can just write as X squared. 25 squared minus 20 squared is 225. Square root, plus or minus. So we get X equals plus or minus, and the square root of 225 is plus or minus 15. So X is equal to 15 centimeters. Okay, and 1D is looking good there. In E, that is C, this is A, and this is B. So I'm going to go C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. So X squared is equal to 112 squared plus 66 squared. So X squared is equal to 112 squared plus 66 squared, and we end up getting 16,900. X is equal to, we would go the square root $130. One E is 130 centimeters. Okay, and letter F, across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, so that's C. We could call this A and this B, so this time I'm going to go A squared plus B squared equals C squared, so that the unknown A is on the left side. So X squared plus B is 160 squared equals 178 squared. And so we have to subtract 160 squared from both sides. And we get X squared is equal to 178 squared minus 160 squared, which is 6084. Square root with a plus or minus in front. So X is equal to plus or minus, I will go the square root, the square root of that answer, and we get 78. And so x is equal to 78 meters. Okay, again, looking good with the answer key. Number 2 says, for each of the following, draw a properly labeled picture, then solve using the Pythagorean theorem. Make sure you write the formula. Calculate the length of the diagonal of a rectangle whose sides measure 14 meters and 48 meters. Okay, so a rectangle. Width is 14 meters, length is 48 meters. Diagonal is right there. And actually, maybe we should put the 14 meters here, and there's our 90-degree triangle. And across from the 90 is C. So what we're looking for is that length C, the diagonal of the rectangle. So we can call this A and this B, and go C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. So C squared is equal to 48 squared plus 14 squared. (48 squared plus 14 squared, which is 2,500. And go square root, square root. Square root of C squared is C. Square root of 2,500 is 50. So at first, mathematically, C could be plus or minus 50, and then we say, hey, I'm finding the length of the side of a triangle, so we will say C is 50 meters. Okay, and that is consistent with the answer key. So we could even put in here, reject, negative, answer. Sometimes the negative answer makes sense for the context of the question, but when we're finding lengths, it doesn't. Part B, calculate the length of a rectangle that has a diagonal of 7.5 meters and a width of 4.5 meters. Okay, so we have a width of 4.5 meters. We have a diagonal of 7.5 meters. Okay, and they want us to calculate the length. They want us to find B. Okay, we know that this is C. Okay, so I'm going to go A squared plus B squared equals C squared. 4.5 squared plus B squared equals 7.5 squared. So I'm going to have to subtract 4.5 squared from both sides. And you get B squared equals 7.5 squared minus 4.5 squared. 36. And then we will do square root, plus or minus in front. B is equal to plus or minus 6. We'll reject the negative and say that B is equal to 6 meters. All right, letter C. A ladder 6.25 meters long rests against a wall at a point 5 meters above the ground. Okay, so ladder, wall. It's resting at this point, which is 5 meters above the ground. There's our 90-degree triangle, and the ladder is resting against the wall, so the ladder is the diagonal here. Here's the ladder, 6.25 meters. How far is the foot of the ladder from the wall? So this would be the foot of the ladder. We want to know what this length is here. And I will just point out that that is the ladder there. Okay, so Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus 5 squared equals 6.25 squared. So a squared is equal to 6.25 squared minus 5 squared, and we get 14.0625. Square root, plus or minus. So a is equal to plus or minus 3.75. A is equal to 3.75 meters. And again, we'll reject the negative answer. Okay, and 2C in the answer key is 3.75. Letter D. Romeo's ladder was 3.125 meters long. When he placed it on the lower edge of Juliet's window, the foot of the ladder was 0.875 meters from the wall. How far was the window above the ground? Okay. Ladder. $90-degree triangle. Here's the window. This is the ladder. And it says Romeo's ladder was 3.125 meters long. When he placed it on the lower edge of Juliet's window, the foot of the ladder was 0.875 meters from the wall. So this is the foot of the ladder, right? Okay, and so how far was the window above the ground? We want to find B. Right here. Okay, so this is A because across from the 90 is C. So we would go A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A is 0.875, so I'll go squared, plus B squared equals 3.125 squared. Okay, I will subtract 0.875 squared from both sides. 0 on that side. B squared is equal to 3.125 squared minus, hang on here, minus 0.875 squared, which is 9. Here's kind of a classic reason as to why b can be the plus or minus of the square root, guys, because if you look at this equation right here, b squared equals 9, there's actually two answers for this, right? B could be 3, or b could be negative 3, right? Because 3 squared is 9, and negative 3 squared is 9, so that's where we kind of get the plus or minus situation from. We can, when you go square root, we can say b can equal plus or minus the square root of 9. B is equal to plus or minus 3. And then from the context of the question, we would just say b is equal to 3 meters. Reject. Negative answer. Okay, so 2D is 3 meters. Good. Letter E, a gate 12 decimeters long and 5 decimeters wide has a board along its diagonal to reinforce it. How long is this board? Okay, so it's sort of getting at, like, if you have a little gate like this, right? Sometimes they look like this. And then there's like a board that goes across these, like that. So that's what they're talking about. So the 12 decimeters would be here, and 5 decimeters wide, and it has a board along its diagonal to reinforce it. So we're trying to figure out this length right here. There's our 90-degree triangle. So this is C, this is A, and this is B. So I would go C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. So C squared is equal to 12 squared plus 5 squared, and we get 169. C is equal to plus or minus 13, and we would say C is equal to 13 decimeters. Alright, how about letter F? A square is inscribed in a circle whose diameter is 10 centimeters. Find the length of the side of the square. Okay, so since it's a square, all 4 sides are equal in length, so this would be x as well. And so this is like our A and our B, and across from the 90 is C. So in doing A squared plus B squared equals C squared, A is x, so x squared, plus B is also x. X squared equals C is 10, so 10 squared. So this is actually a little bit different from what we've been doing before. What we have to do now is go, hey, if I have x squared plus x squared, that is 2x squared, and 10 squared is 100. and then divide both sides by 2, and we get x squared equals 50, and now we're ready to square root both sides. We go square root, x can be the plus or minus of that. X is equal to plus or minus. The square root of 50 is 7.1 to 1 decimal place. And so I would say, therefore, x is equal to 7.1 centimeters. All right, on to number 3. For each of the following, draw a properly labeled picture, then solve using the Pythagorean theorem. Make sure you write the formula. Each of these will have at least 2 steps. Okay, a square corner lot has sides of 50 meters. Calculate the distance saved in taking a shortcut across the diagonal. Okay. Okay, so imagine you want to get from point A to point B. Square corner lot has sides of 50 meters. We could complete the square if you want. Okay, so notice what the question is saying. It's saying calculate the distance saved in taking a shortcut across the grass. So if we don't take the shortcut, we would have to go 50 meters and 50 meters. So no shortcut means 50 meters plus 50 meters, which is 100 meters. If we do the shortcut, that would be just cutting straight across like this, which is across from the 90 degrees, so that's C. So figuring out what C would be, and then finding the difference between that and the no shortcut way. So this is A and this is B, and we would go C squared is equal to okay, so why don't we call this the shortcut way? So if we go shortcut, it would be C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. 50 squared plus 50 squared, so C squared is equal to 50 squared plus 50 squared, which is 5,000. So C is equal to plus or minus the square root of 5,000, which is 70.7. So we would say C is equal to the positive 70.7 meters. So then the distance saved is the difference between these two. So we will say distance saved. Give myself a little bit more space there, I think. Distance saved is equal to 100 meters minus 70.7 meters, and that is going to be 29.3 meters. If you go 100 minus the 70.7. All right, letter B. A 98 centimeter umbrella is packed into a suitcase that has dimensions of 84 centimeters by 52 centimeters. Okay, so suitcase is like this. Okay, so there's the suitcase. It is 84 centimeters by 52 centimeters. And it says, if the umbrella is packed on the diagonal, find the clearance of the umbrella, so the amount of room left. So imagine they have like an umbrella stuffed in here. Try to draw this. Okay, sort of a closed up umbrella, if you will, like that. Okay, so it's like that, and it wants to know if it's packed along the diagonal, how much room do we have left here, like that. Okay, so we have to get the whole diagonal first. Like, what is that? C. And I know it's C because it's across from the 90. So this can be A and this can be B. And then it says the umbrella itself is 98 centimeters. Okay, so then we'll get the clearance. So just the umbrella is 98 centimeters. So let's figure out C. We will go C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. 84 squared plus 52 squared. $9,760. Square root with a plus or minus. C is equal to plus or minus the square root of that answer, 98.8 to 1 decimal place. So C, the whole diagonal, is 98.8 centimeters. Okay, and the umbrella itself is 98 centimeters, so the clearance is only 0.8 centimeters. Okay. Clearance is equal to 98.8 centimeters minus the length of the umbrella, which is 98 centimeters, and that's where they get in the answer key this 0.8 centimeters from. All right, letter C. Boat B is 10 kilometers west of boat A. Boat A travels directly north to get to shore. Boat B travels 26 kilometers directly to the same point on shore. So this is 26. How much shorter is boat A's trip? So how much shorter? So we're going to have to figure out boat A's trip and then find the difference between that and boat B's trip. So that's the extra step. Okay. Across from the 90 is C. So I would go A squared plus B squared equals C squared. We're trying to find A. This is B. B is 10 squared and C is 26 squared. So then subtract 10 squared from both sides, and we get A squared is equal to 26 squared take away 10 squared. We get 576. Square root both sides. A is equal to plus or minus Square root of 576 is 24. So the A length is 24 kilometers. Okay, and it says how much shorter is boat A's trip? It is 2 kilometers shorter because boat B has to go 26. Okay, so we would say boat A's trip is 26 kilometers minus 24 kilometers, which is equal to 2 kilometers shorter. Okay, and that is 3C, 2 kilometers in the answer key. All right, letter D, 2 telephone poles are 60 meters apart. The poles are 42 meters and 60 meters high. What is the length of a wire stretched between these poles? Pulled tight. Okay. Here's our 2 telephone poles. This one is 42 meters. This is 60 meters. The 2 telephone poles are 60 meters apart. What is the length of a wire stretched between these poles? Okay, so I'm guessing like this. I guess it should say stretched between the tops of these poles and then pulled tight. Okay. So here's the 90-degree triangle that we set up. That's going to be 60 meters, just transferred up from that bottom length. There's our 90 degrees. We want to figure out C, that's across from the 90. That's the length of the wire. And this remaining side right here is the difference in height between the 2 poles. Okay, the taller one is 60 meters. Okay, up to this point right here is 42, so I would have to go 60 minus 42. Okay, so this piece right here is 18 meters. Okay, so to get the length of the wire, we would go C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So this is A and this is B. 60 squared plus 18 squared. 60 squared plus 18 squared. And we get 3924. Square root, plus or minus. Square root both sides, so we get plus or minus 62.6. And so the length is 62.6 meters. Okay. Looks like 3 questions left here. Letter E wants us to find the length of the sides labeled X and Y. Okay. Well, I think X is easy enough because it's part of a 90-degree triangle. Y is actually part of the bigger 90-degree triangle. So X, first of all, that's the C. I would just go, this will be A, and this is B. Pythagorean theorem is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A is X, B is 15, C is 17. Subtract 15 squared from both sides. And so we get X squared equals 17 squared minus 15 squared, bang, 64. And square root, plus or minus. X is equal to plus or minus 8. Square root of 64 is 8. And it's the length of the side of a triangle, so we would say that x is 8. They haven't given us any units. Okay, so x is 8, which means that this whole side length of the big 90-degree triangle is 8 plus 12, which is 20. Okay, so we essentially have this now. Y is out here. There's a line going down here, right? But I'm just going to disregard that 17. We have this still as being 15, and since we figured out that x was 8, we now know that that side is 20. Okay, and so across from the 90 is c. So c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. So c squared is equal to 15 squared plus 20 squared. And we get 625. And now I'm ready to square root both sides. What's the square root of 625? It's 25. Okay, so c, which is actually equal to y, I maybe should have put y in there, is 25, and we would reject the negative answer. All right, here is letter F. In the diagram below, AB equals 13 centimeters. BC equals 21 centimeters. And BD equals 5 centimeters. Find the length of AC. Okay, so if BD is 5 centimeters and from B all the way to C is 21, that would mean that this is 16 centimeters. Okay, and they want us to figure out, find the length of AC, which is right here. That's what they want us to find. Okay, so here's what we're going to have to do, guys. We're going to have to use this first 90-degree triangle right here to figure out x, and then use that x to get this one over here. So Pythagorean theorem twice. That is the plan. Okay, so in the first smaller triangle, across from the 90 is the C. So this can be A and this can be B. So a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. A is 5. 5 squared plus x squared equals 13 squared. So x squared, oh, I should show it. We have to subtract 5 squared from both sides. X squared is equal to 13 squared minus 5 squared, and we get 144. And then go square root, which is plus or minus. So x is equal to plus or minus 12. Reject the negative because x is the length of a side. So x is equal to 12. Great. And now we can use that to get the the length AC, which I've labeled as y. Okay, and it's across from the 90, so that's C, which means we can make this A and this B. C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. C I have replaced with y, so y squared is equal to, the A is 12, B is equal to 16, so y squared is equal to 12 squared plus 16 squared, which is 400. Square root, square root. Okay, so y is equal to plus or minus 20, and we would say y equals 20, and that is going to be centimeters. And that is 3F, and this is equal to AC. All right, number 4, Jim is trying to find the measure of a leg of a triangle. He knows one leg is 10 centimeters and the hypotenuse is 26 centimeters. So he has something like this. He knows the hypotenuse is 26 and he knows one leg is 10 centimeters. He's trying to find the other one. Below is his solution. Find the step he made his mistake in. That seems right so far. We are trying to find a leg, which means it would be on the same side as the other leg, so that seems right. This seems right, but then what you'd have to do is subtract 100 from both sides, not add. So he makes his first mistake in step 4. Okay, and that's what the answer key says. Okay, so that's kind of like his first mistake, because if that's wrong, then step 5 would be wrong as well. But it's all good. And finally, number 5, a warehouse is 20 meters long, 12 meters wide, and 7 meters high. Find the diagonal distance from A to B. Write your answer in the box provided. Hint, use the diagonals shown. Yeah, okay. So with this, guys, there are two 90-degree triangles that you use. There's one that's like this, and that is flat along the ground. So this one is flat along the ground. And what you do is you use it to get that side length C. I know that's C because it's across from the 90. So this is A and B. And then when you have that, it's part of this 90-degree triangle that's standing straight up along like this. See how there's 90 degrees there. And what you do is you use the C and this one to then get that diagonal from A to B. Okay, which we can call X for now. Okay. So, for starters, we need to work in this triangle. And as mentioned, this is across from the 90, so it's C, and there's A and B. So I would go C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. C squared is equal to 12 squared plus 20 squared. So C squared is equal to 544 square root, square root. And the square root of 544 is 23.3. Nope, I have to go C equals, we reject the negative, 23.3 meters. Okay, so now I'm going to take that C, I'm going to go put it here, 23.3 meters. And now I'm going to use the triangle that is standing up. So this side, and this diagonal right here. Okay, and so now our letters sort of shift, because across from the 90, this will be C, and this can be our new A, and the 7 can be B. And we're looking for C, so I would go C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. So C squared is equal to, the A is 23.3 squared, the B is 7 squared. 23.3 squared plus 7 squared is 591.89. And let's go square root, plus or minus. C is equal to plus or minus the square root of that nice number. And we get 24.3. So C would be equal to 24.3 meters. And I noticed in the answer key they're getting 24.4. So I wonder if maybe they just didn't round that first value, 23.3, and kind of kept more decimal places. What was it? The 23.3 came from the square root of 544. So it's possible they could have just used that number, because the 23.3 then shows up right here. So if I did that and I just went that answer squared plus 7 squared, that would give me 593 instead of the 591. And then we would square root that and get 24.4. Okay, so that's how they're getting 24.4, just by not rounding this one the way we did. They used more decimal places here, which changed this number, which made it slightly more accurate. Okay, so however you want to do it. And so over here we would go 24.3, and if you want to, you can fill these in. Alright, and there you go, everybody. That is an answer key for the Trig Lesson 1 homework on the Pythagorean theorem. And I will talk to you soon.